So I've done an anime review, a rant video, and a random video. Only one more thing left to do to complete the BCG return. Time to take my movie reviewing power pill. Wait a minute, this is supposed to be a suppository. Oh boy. Okay, let's do it. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy, and you know, movie theaters may still be closed and all, but somehow, someway, the month of August has found a way to still remain its crappy self by delivering onto us some really dreadful, terrible movies. And films like Project Power are a fine example of how, although we are in a pandemic situation, things have not changed. You keep doing you, August. In this mediocre lackluster, the government pushes a new pill into the streets of New Orleans that when ingested gives the user superpowers for 5 minutes. Enter Jamie Foxx, who has a bone to pick with the government, and together with an unorthodox cop and a black teen girl, they set out to stop them from mass selling the drugs. When I saw the trailer for Project Power, I'll admit, it piqued my curiosity. A story about a pill that gives you superpowers for a few minutes? Oh, the possibilities. But when I saw the movie, what I got instead was wasted potential. Yeah, this movie sucked. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush with you guys. It's awful and generic. Plain and simple. Of the things I found to be at the very least decent, there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. He was by far the most entertaining and interesting character throughout the film. Which isn't really saying that much when every other character is bland and forgettable. But hey, at least he left an impact. At least what he did was fun to watch. Seeing him diffuse bad situations through bravado and quick wit, I got a kick out of that. It was so much fun to watch. But if there's one complaint that I have, it's actually with JGL's performance and the accent that he was trying to pull off. I don't know what the hell that accent was, but it definitely wasn't a New Orleans one or a Southern one. Just don't do accents, JGL. I love you, man, but just stay away from the accents. His character was also in the only good action scene in the movie, where he fights Mr. Fantastic, this henchman that has the power to twist and stretch his body. The camera work was competent in this action scene, as you can see the action unfold. More on that a little later. And the way that the actor was able to contort, twist, and move his body in this tight, closed space, I thought was really cool, and it added to the intensity of that action scene. Really well done. Okay, that's it. On to the bad. Oh god, where to begin on the myriad of problems here? Well, I guess we could start with the film's main selling point, the action. Honestly, it's underwhelming and unremarkable, and it's sad to say that given that it's a film about pills that give people superpowers. But that's the thing, the variety of the powers here were quite limited, which made the action very limiting and visually unimpressive. Now, granted, there are some action scenes that had some unique looking visuals, but the cheap CGI ruined any sort of intensity that the scene could have had. And yeah, the CGI? Bad here. It looks ugly for a film made in 2020. Hell, it looked like CGI straight out of the late 2000s, which is inexcusable to me. I mean, really? Netflix, with all the billions of dollars that you make, you couldn't shell out an extra $1 or $2 million to just refine the CGI just a little bit? Are you that greedy? Did you have such little faith in that film you didn't even see the need to just improve the CGI just a little bit? The hand-to-hand combat was lazily choreographed. And that's when you can see it, as the camera is constantly shaking in all these damn action scenes. And you know how much I hate that shit. But the worst one of them all was this one-shot take in the middle of the film that, in all honesty, could have been the coolest action scene, But it gets obscured by this glass container with a woman inside that's turning into ice. Now look, I completely get what they were trying to pull off with this one-shot take, as I've seen it in other films and TV shows. But the difference is, unlike those that actually show you the action unfolding a la Children of Men, or ones that stylistically hide the action so it lets your imagination run wild, a la Fargo Season 1 when Billy Bob Thornton goes into that building and systematically just takes out guys floor by floor, they try to have their cake and eat it too. In this moment, they kind of show you what's happening, but they also are obscuring it with the glass in front of it, and there's also frost building on the glass, so you can't really get a good look as to what's happening, and you're just left there like, this is terrible. For me, the one shot just failed to commit to either one, making it feel like both a cock tease and a way for them to hide their lazy action, which is a capital sin in a goddamn action movie. And to backtrack a little bit, regarding the powers in this film, I am extremely disappointed in the lack of diversity in the types of powers put on display here. Sure, there are some visually interesting and unique ones in the film, like the Mr. Fantastic power that I talked about earlier. Later in the film, there's this guy that has bones protruding out of his body. That was pretty badass. That looked cool. But other than that, most of the powers were just not visually interesting, or they were just too obvious and basic. What? Fire powers, ice powers, invisibility, super strength, yada yada, blah blah blah. You had the opportunity with this concept of a pill that gives people superpowers to just go balls to the walls with it and come up with as many superpowers that you could put on display, and those were the ones that you thought of, just that? Not to mention you missed some obvious ones too. What, did nobody have the power of flight? Nobody had telekinesis? Nobody had transformation powers? Teleportation powers? To me, that's just a sign of pure laziness. And speaking of lazy, the story. Come on, man. How could you waste such a good premise on a boring ass generic been there done that story? Honestly, the story should have been about JGL's character. He was the most interesting character in the film, and it would have been interesting to follow this cop in this world who's forced to use the power pill in order to fight people that use the power pill. I would rather follow that story. That's a more compelling story than Jamie Foxx was screwed by the government and had something taken from him, and now he goes on a powerless rampage to get it back. Wait a minute. That sounds so familiar. Isn't that the exact same story as Sleepless? You know, that piece of shit?
They said it was just gonna be an easy grab. Well, it ain't no easy grab. They got teeth.
And finally, the characters. Not much I could say about them outside of they were terrible and cliche. Look, I love Jamie Foxx. I've loved him as an actor for many years. Loved him in Django, loved him in Ray, loved him on the Jamie Foxx show. I thought he was really funny in Living Color. He was a great comedian for a time, and I still think he can be a great comedian. Please do a stand-up one day. Please, Jamie Foxx. He's a great singer. He's a great talent. He's a good person in general. But man, he keeps picking bad role after bad role after bad role. Come on, man. You're better than this. You're an Academy Award-winning actor. And I've seen you give good performances before. But this performance is wooden. In one note, there's nothing that stands out about this performance. And he's just not an interesting character to follow. He's a drag. Jamie Foxx, please, man, please, just either fire your agent or pick better roles, man. You deserve better than this. I know you do. The teen girl that Jamie Foxx kidnaps and then later she decides to start palling around with him like they've been buddy-buddy for the entire film was completely useless outside of opening doors. I'm not joking. The most important thing she does in this film was open doors. Other than that, completely useless. As for her bond with Jamie Foxx, non-existent. I felt nil chemistry between the two of them. And I don't buy for one goddamn second that she would pal around, like, and by the end of the film see Jamie Foxx as a father figure after he kidnapped her in the middle of the night, threw her into the back of his truck, used her time and time again to get what he wanted, and also mentally tortured and scarred her for life. That is Stockholm Syndrome like a motherfucker if I've seen it. And the villains. Wow. Absolute trash. It doesn't get more derivative than this, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost laughable how bad they were here if it wasn't so aggravating. And they go out like straight bitches. I mean, one gets killed by Jamie Foxx in 3 seconds, and the other is killed by falling debris. Seriously, film? All that buildup for Jamie Foxx to find them and get his revenge, and you don't even give us a satisfying or even just a decent altercation between them? Okay, yeah. YouTube movie. You too. And the last thing I like to discuss might be seen as a nitpick to some, but my god, it annoyed the shit out of me throughout the entire film. It just never stopped bringing this point up. And it was almost comical how many times they brought it up. And I just need to rant about it for a few minutes if you don't mind. And that's the fact that this film constantly, and I'm not kidding, constantly had to point out the fact that the film takes place in New Orleans. Now look, I don't hate New Orleans as a city. It's rich with culture. It can be a little hot in the summer. There's a lot of great food places. I personally like it, and I'm actually a big fan of the Saints. But man, this film wanted to suck New Orleans' dick so hard. It kept talking about the fact that it's New Orleans. JGL's character wears a New Orleans Saints jersey for most of the film. And whenever he comes into a scene, he's always like, NOPD, New Orleans PD. I don't recall ever hearing people charge in saying NOPD, or even in other films where it takes place in other cities. Imagine if it's like in Florida, like TPD, Tampa Police Department, put your hands up, you know. JPD, Jacksonville Police. I've never seen that in a film before until I saw this film. Usually it's NYPD or LAPD, not NOPD. It just kind of felt blatant, like almost like they're parodying them saying something like that, like it was a joke, but it didn't seem like his character was treating it like a joke. He seemed quite serious when he said it. Not to mention, he's having a conversation with a guy, and he's like, yo, can you hurry up and do this so I can go watch the Saints highlights? What did that have to do with the scene? You just had to say that because he's wearing a Saints jersey, so he's a fan of the Saints. Did you get it? Did you get that he was a fan of the Saints? And then there's a Saints game that ends in the film. A crowd of people come rushing out, and they're like, go Saints, or who can stop them Saints? At the end of the film, on the radio, it's like a joke. It's like a bad joke on the radio. It's like, how about them Saints, everybody? Yes, we get it. You guys love the Saints. They're your team. Fine. But you don't have to keep bringing it up. What did it serve? Like, if you really think, why did they have to constantly mention it? Was it just so that they could get their name? Was it a shameless plug or something? Were they mandated to have to point out that they were in New Orleans in every single page of the script? Was that like one of the stipulations for filming in New Orleans? Not to mention, the teen girl in the film, her screensaver is Zion Williamson. And what team does Zion Williamson play for? Why, the New Orleans Pelicans. Look, movie, please. Yamate, just please. Stop. I get it. New Orleans, I get it. But you don't have to keep bringing it up. And I found it really annoying. Like, I thought the scene where you had all those fans coming out of the dome where the Saints played, I thought that was actually going to be, like, vital to the plot. Like, maybe there's a scene where the teen girl and Jamie Foxx, they have to follow this guy, so what they do is they blend in the crowd so that they're not spotted. Maybe they're even cheering for the Saints. Because there are scenes where Jamie Foxx puts on a persona per se and then pretends to be somebody else. Wouldn't that have been a perfect scene to do it in when people are like all crowded after the Saints game? You gotta follow this guy, just blend in with the crowd. That would have been perfect. That would have been a plot-driven reason to have that scene. But there was no point. They just did that because we're in New Orleans. You have to have a Saints game end in a film that takes place in New Orleans. To put it bluntly, Project Power had all the potential in the world to be a great, exhilarating, and memorable action film that people would talk about for years. But it completely squanders all of its potential with the derivative story, boring characters, and lackluster action. It took all of that potential and just went, Kobe. Oh, wait, no, this is in New Orleans, so, AD. No, wait, no, he's an LA Laker now. Zion. That's what they did. They just tossed it away. Don't need it. Why tell a great story when we could just be generic like everybody else? And what Project Power ends up being is an unnecessary waste of time. If you want to see a great Netflix action film, just watch Extraction. It's phenomenal. Watch that. Don't waste your time on Project Power. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my review of Project Power. And be sure to let me know what you guys thought about the film. Did you love it to death? Do you think it's one of Netflix's best action films? Or did you find it boring, forgettable, and you just couldn't get into it? Or you hated the fact that it constantly had to remind you that it took place in New Orleans? I'm sorry. Random outburst right there. Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you'd like to see more videos on this channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on any new videos. Like the video, share the video, help me reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And as always, I am Tony Wallet II, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace YouTube!